They thought their hill was untouchable. They thought their defenses could hold. And then, in minutes, it all collapsed. The morning fog clung to Hill 312 like a blanket over a battlefield that had been meticulously prepared for weeks. Soviet soldiers had fortified every inch of the ridge. Trenches twisted across jagged rocks, machine gun nests bristled from every vantage point, and mortars were positioned to dominate every approach. Barbed wire snaked across exposed ground, and sandbags lined the slopes with grim precision. Every rock, every depression, every contour had been accounted for. To lose this hill would be a devastating blow, not just tactically, but psychologically. For the soldiers stationed there, it was a symbol of strength, a piece of terrain that seemed untouchable. Confidence ran through the trenches. Soldiers cleaned rifles and maintained mortars, officers studied maps, and every man believed in the security of their positions. Weeks of fortification and training had convinced them that no enemy could take Hill 312 quickly. They expected attacks in the conventional manner, slow, methodical, perhaps in overwhelming numbers. But nothing in their experience prepared them for what was coming. Across the valley, hidden beneath the folds of the morning mist, a small group of U.S. Rangers was moving with deadly intent. These were not ordinary infantry. Every step, every hand signal, every breath was part of a carefully rehearsed operation. Their mission was simple: seize the hill quickly, decisively, and with minimal risk. The Soviets had no idea that the very ground they trusted would soon betray them. The Rangers crept through the shadows, blending perfectly with rocks and trees, each squad moving in flawless synchronization. Scouts advanced ahead, noting the positions of machine guns, mortars, and command posts. Communication was silent but precise. Gestures, eye contact, and signals ensured that every soldier knew exactly where to go and what to do. Behind them, squads adjusted their pace, staying in position, waiting for the exact moment to strike. Meanwhile, atop Hill 312, Soviet soldiers remained oblivious to the approaching threat. Some noticed fleeting movements in the mist but dismissed them as natural shadows. The wind carried the faint whistle of distant artillery, a routine morning sound in this contested valley. Soldiers gripped their rifles, scanning the fog for signs of an imminent attack. Confidence was strong, fear was minimal. They expected a long battle. What they did not anticipate was precision, speed, and audacity that could destroy their defenses in minutes. And then the first shots rang out. Sniper fire cut through key positions, machine guns were neutralized almost instantly, and demolitions tore through obstacles and barbed wire with surgical efficiency. Mortars that should have responded with counter-barrages were silenced before crews could react. The fog parted to reveal a terrifying sight. Rangers moved like shadows, advancing across trenches with terrifying precision. They struck at exactly the right positions, neutralizing threats and cutting off escape routes. Officers shouted orders, but their voices were drowned in chaos. Soldiers froze, not just from fear, but from disbelief. Their fortified hill, the symbol of strength they trusted, was unraveling before their eyes. The Americans were methodical. Each wave, each squad, advanced with a speed and coordination that seemed almost unreal. Explosions, gunfire, and the collapse of fortifications created a psychological hammer that shattered the defenders' confidence. By the time the first trenches were breached, panic had spread. Men who had believed in their preparation now struggled to react. Even the landscape seemed against them. Hills, trenches, and rock formations, the very terrain they had relied on, now amplified the Rangers' efficiency. Each movement, each strike, each tactical maneuver reinforced the realization: Hill 312 was no longer secure. By the end of this first phase, the Soviets were paralyzed. The Rangers had demonstrated something terrifying: speed, precision, and audacity could erase defenses that had taken weeks to construct. Hill 312 was no longer a fortress, it was a battlefield of disbelief, and its defenders would never forget the shock of those first minutes. The attack escalated with terrifying speed. By the time the Soviet soldiers realized the extent of the assault, the Rangers were already inside the outer trenches. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical, yet fluid, like shadows sliding across the landscape. Every squad, Every fire team knew exactly what to do. Each rifle, each explosive, each grenade was deployed with deadly intention. This was not a haphazard attack, this was surgical warfare in motion. Soviet soldiers tried to respond. Mortar crews scrambled to reload under the relentless pressure, but before they could fire a single round, snipers had already neutralized their positions. Machine guns opened in frantic bursts, yet every attempt at resistance was anticipated, every escape route blocked. Command posts, normally safe havens of coordination, were quickly surrounded, leaving officers shouting into empty space. Confusion rippled through the ranks. Orders that would have once galvanized men into action were now drowned out by the overwhelming precision of the attack. The fog of the early morning provided no cover. It had been a friend, masking movements and hiding the terrain's contours, but now it worked against the defenders. The Rangers used it to approach undetected, then struck with the efficiency of a storm breaking over the hill. Explosions tore through trenches, debris flew into the mist, and the very earth seemed to shake beneath the impact. Soldiers froze mid-step, caught between disbelief and the desperate urge to survive. Every tactical decision made by the Soviets was countered instantly. Attempts to regroup were met with flanking maneuvers, well-coordinated suppressive fire, and sudden, devastating charges from the Rangers. In moments, entire sections of the hill that had been considered impenetrable were overrun. The defenders' belief in their fortifications, the trenches, the obstacles, the high ground, was crumbling under the weight of a force moving with unmatched discipline. The Rangers pressed on without hesitation. They cleared trenches systematically, advancing on key positions with both aggression and restraint. Each movement was calculated to maximize shock and minimize risk. Soldiers on the hill could only watch as their lines disintegrated in real time. Panic was contagious. Men abandoned positions, some fleeing in confusion, others crouching in trenches too exposed to escape. The psychological impact was as significant as the physical destruction. As the attack intensified, Soviet officers attempted to rally their men. Shouts echoed across the hillside, but they were met with silence or frantic, disorganized responses. The chain of command was broken almost as quickly as the first machine gun nest. Soldiers who had been confident, even complacent, moments before, now froze in terror. Some attempted to fire blindly, others dropped to the ground, hoping to survive the onslaught. Each Ranger squad seemed omnipresent, striking simultaneously at multiple points with perfect coordination. The misty valley became a theater of chaos. Smoke from demolished trenches rose into the morning light, mingling with dust and debris. The sounds of battle were deafening: gunfire, explosions, and the cries of men caught off guard by the speed of the assault. The Soviets had prepared for days, yet in less than 20 minutes, their defenses were systematically dismantled. Even terrain that should have favored the defenders was now a liability. The hills and ridges that once provided a strategic advantage now offered no protection from the rapid, coordinated assault. Every step, every movement of the Rangers amplified the sense of inevitability. The psychological blow of seeing the hill fall so quickly left soldiers paralyzed. They could not retreat effectively, they could not organize a counterattack, and most could not even comprehend how such a small force could render their fortified position useless. By the end of this phase of the battle, Hill 312 was no longer a defensive stronghold, it was a testament to the effectiveness of elite infantry tactics. Speed, precision, and psychological dominance had overcome preparation, numbers, and firepower. The Soviets had frozen, not just from fear, but from disbelief. They had trusted in their training, their fortifications, and their high ground, yet all of it had been rendered irrelevant in a matter of minutes. The Rangers, methodical and relentless, paused only to secure the positions they had taken. Trenches were cleared, key vantage points were occupied, and escape routes were controlled. The assault had been both swift and decisive. Soviet soldiers who survived the initial onslaught were scattered across the hillside, stunned and demoralized. Some had surrendered, some had fled, and others had been captured. The hill, once thought impregnable, had been seized with precision and audacity. In those moments, the psychological impact was clear. The Soviets had witnessed their own defenses fall faster than they could react, their morale shattered before physical destruction had even run its course. Hill 312 had become a symbol, not of victory, but of how quickly confidence, preparation, and belief in one's defenses could be stripped away by a force that understood the power of speed, precision, and elite training. By the time the final wave of Rangers surged over Hill 312, the battlefield had been transformed into a scene of chaos and disbelief. Trenches lay shattered, barbed wire had been cut or obliterated, and mortars were silent, their crews either incapacitated or scattered. Soviet soldiers who had stood proud and confident only moments before were now frozen, paralyzed by the shock of seeing their meticulously prepared defenses fall apart in minutes. Those who had survived the initial assault attempted to regroup, but the very terrain seemed to betray them. Escape routes were blocked or covered by relentless Ranger fire. Officers shouted, trying to restore order, but their words were swallowed by the sound of gunfire, explosions, and the ragged breathing of men caught in panic. Fear had spread faster than any bullets, infecting every unit across the hillside. The Rangers advanced systematically. They did not need to rush, they moved with deliberate efficiency, consolidating each position before pressing onward. Trenches were cleared, key points of fire neutralized, and high ground secured to prevent any counterattack. Every squad acted like a single organism, coordinated, precise, and unrelenting. To the Soviet soldiers, it was as if an invisible force had overtaken the hill, striking simultaneously at multiple points, leaving no opportunity to react. Chaos reigned in the ranks of the defenders. Some soldiers attempted to flee down the ridges, only to find themselves trapped or surrounded. Others froze in place, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Entire units ceased to function as cohesive fighting forces, their morale shattered. What had been weeks of preparation and hard work evaporated under the relentless pressure of an elite force executing its mission with flawless timing. Amid the fog and smoke, the psychological toll became clear. Men who had been trained to stand firm in the face of artillery and massed infantry now trembled at the precision and speed of a few dozen attackers. Their confidence, once bolstered by fortifications and high ground, had crumbled. Hill 312 was no longer a stronghold, it was a testament to the devastating effectiveness of elite infantry tactics. By the end of the assault, the hill was fully in American hands. The Rangers had accomplished in minutes what conventional attacks might have required hours or days to achieve. The Soviets were left to contend with the aftermath, captured comrades, scattered equipment, and the lingering sense of humiliation that accompanies being overrun by a smaller, more capable force. The physical destruction was only part of the impact. The psychological damage, fear, disbelief, and disorientation, would last far longer, shaping how surviving troops viewed future engagements. The Americans took the hill quickly and efficiently, securing positions and preparing for any possible counterattack. Their discipline and coordination ensured that even if the Soviets regrouped, the advantage remained firmly in Ranger hands. What had seemed an impregnable position, a hill fortified with trenches, obstacles, and machine guns, was now a symbol of precision, speed, and audacity. For the Soviet soldiers, the lesson was immediate and unforgettable. Numbers, preparation, and entrenched positions were not guarantees of security. Against a disciplined, elite force moving with both speed and coordination, even the most carefully constructed defenses could be rendered irrelevant. Hill 312 had become a stark reminder that modern warfare demanded more than courage or fortifications. It demanded adaptability, training, and the ability to anticipate moves an enemy might make in minutes rather than hours. As the dust settled, Hill 312 stood as both a strategic victory for the Rangers and a psychological blow to the defenders. Soldiers who had frozen in disbelief carried the memory of those minutes for the rest of their careers. They had witnessed the devastating effectiveness of elite infantry, a force that could strike fast, precise, and without hesitation. The battle for the hill ended quickly, but its lessons echoed long after. Hill 312 would never be the same in the minds of those who defended it. It had been captured not by overwhelming numbers or brute force, but by precision, coordination, and the audacity to move faster than the defenders could comprehend. In a matter of minutes, an entire defensive position had been erased, leaving behind a stark lesson in the terrifying power of elite soldiers operating at the peak of tactical efficiency. Hill 312 remained a testament to what happens when preparation meets an enemy capable of exploiting every weakness, moving faster, striking harder, and leaving no room for hesitation. For the survivors, the memory of that assault was a chilling reminder: no position is truly impregnable, and in modern warfare, speed and precision often outweigh numbers and fortifications.